It's great to have you with us. It's a surprise move. President Donald Trump says he's authorized a 90-day pause on his sweeping tariffs on most countries. The leader taking to his Truth Social platform to make the announcement, crediting his decision to pause the levies on the fact that more than 75 countries, he says, have contacted U.S. officials to negotiate. Well, it hasn't even been a full day since Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariffs came into force. It's triggered another volatile day of trading across the globe. It was a mixed picture on Wall Street. The three stock markets there have risen despite opening in negative territory this afternoon. Meanwhile, investors selling off U.S. Treasury bonds, something that is usually considered a safe haven asset. Well, on the European side, stocks closed sharply lower. A similar story in the Asia-Pacific markets, which also suffered a downward slide. Well, Donald Trump slammed the brakes on his sweeping tariffs on most countries except China. The president stepping up levies on the world's second largest economy to 125%. That's just hours after Beijing hit back with a tax of 84% on U.S. imports. Trump says he's punishing China for the, quote, lack of respect it has for world markets. Well, let's cross live to Washington and get more from France 24's correspondent Fraser Jackson. Fraser, this decision to pause the tariffs for the next 90 days certainly comes as a big surprise.
It does, but it should be noted, this is not a pause on all tariffs. This is only a pause on the reciprocal tariffs, so those above that 10% baseline. That is what is being paused, not the baseline 10%. They are still in effect. Now, that means that the countries most impacted by this are going to be China, but also the European Union, which had an extra 10% slapped on top of the existing 10% baseline. And that top 10% will now be paused for 90 days. But again, that baseline 10% on the EU, on China, on all other countries still in existence. Now, Donald Trump and the White House, we just heard from the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just recently, who was trying to explain these tariffs a bit more. And he said basically the reason for this is because he told countries a week ago when these tariffs were announced not to retaliate. And if they didn't, then they would be rewarded. And he said that this pause is that reward for them not retaliating with escalating measures. Now, he says, you can see that also in Donald Trump's post on Truth Social, if we can bring that up for you. Donald Trump says, these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape or form against the United States. I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. So Donald Trump there saying that it is a pause that was rewarding those who didn't retaliate. Scott Bessent, who was the Treasury Secretary, again said that it took great courage for him, Donald Trump, to stay the course until this moment, and what we have ended up with is here. Now, of course, that is a nod to the fact that the markets have been taking this tariff news extremely negatively. There's been trillions of dollars worth of value lost from the markets over the course of the last week or so. However, they have rebounded in the wake of this announcement on Donald Trump's social media platform. Stocks now surging once again in the United States as this news of a slight tariff relief goes into effect.
Well, that announcement today also came with an announcement of Trump stepping up tariffs on China. He's punishing them even further.
Yeah, the one country that really did bite back against Donald Trump's trade tariffs was China, who announced reciprocal tariffs of their own. At first, they announced the reciprocal tariff, which then Donald Trump shot back against with a tariff of 50% of his own. China then did the same thing, bringing U.S. tariffs in China up to 84%. The U.S.'s was going to be 104%. That's on top of the tariffs that they already have as well. Well, now Donald Trump has increased that 104% number up to 125%. Now, that is significant because China is the second largest country that the U.S. imports from after Mexico. Last year, they did $440 billion worth of imports to the U.S. from China, and those now are effectively going to have to pay 2.25 times what you would have paid previously. So a lot of things that could be impacted, of course, things like electronics, iPhones especially, likely to get a significant bump in price if those costs, as we believe, will be passed on to the consumers by companies. And of course, there's a whole range of textiles and other things that are continuing. But at the moment, China showing no sign of backing down. Donald Trump said that China wanted to do a deal, they just didn't know how to. But China at the moment saying that they are here and going through this until the end. So now we're waiting to see who blinks first.
Fraser, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed there. Fraser Jackson reporting live there from Washington.